Okay, so I hope I'm somewhat in frame. I feel like I should be if I can look at the lens correctly. But I'm preparing for my interview. It is currently 1:20 in the afternoon on Monday, so welcome to the vlog, everybody. Starting a little bit later than I normally do today because I've just been all kinds of crazy. It's been a very, very crazy morning. Yesterday did not go at all how I had originally planned. Basically, I was out, like I had said before, at the end of last week's vlog. I was out for a while, and I got almost no editing done. Like, I managed to edit my vlog from last week, but was not able to get it uploaded or anything because by the time I finished editing it and was getting it started to export, it was 12:30 in the morning, and I had to go to bed because I had to get up this morning and I had to be, all kinds of prepared for my interview today. So it's been a morning where during my breaks I was editing my other two videos, and I still have to finish editing my podcast. As of now, my vlog has not even gone out yet because it's been sitting in processing on YouTube for the better part of probably about 2 hours. And that's also because of the fact that multiple times over the course of me trying to edit and upload stuff on my breaks, my computer kept crashing. So I just had too many things going on at one time, basically, with my laptop, and it just decided to die on me a couple of times, which is great. But it's been a morning. I'm just overwhelmed. I have no idea what to expect with this interview. I didn't really get much information of what was going to be going on because, they called me Friday asking if I was able to come in that day to interview, and I said no because it was too short notice. My husband was going to be at work, I would need to get a puppy sitter, and it just wasn't going to work out. And so they said, okay, well, why don't you come in on Monday around 3:30? I had a bit of a panic attack Thursday about this because I initially got a call from them Thursday about my application and stuff, and they were said, okay, somebody will call you tomorrow about setting up an interview, because it was at 5 o'clock when they called me Thursday. And so Thursday night I had a bit of a panic attack, and yesterday I had a really bad one too, because of the fact that this was the first interview I've gone to in about 3 years, and I'm really nervous too because of the fact that I am trying to make sure that no matter where I end up in terms of a position, that I am not going to be in an environment that is going to in any way be toxic and is going to take advantage of me. Because not that my current position necessarily takes advantage of me too much, they just don't pay me what I think I should be getting, despite having fought for a raise and everything for the last year and a half. I don't want to work in an environment where it's going to, be incredibly harmful to me, whether if that means having me work way more than I should, or being around people that are going to be problematic. I'm not going to deal with that, especially if they're going to be problematic towards me because I'm young and a woman and all these things. But also, I don't want to be in an environment where it's toxic for other people, where, if I'm noticing that things are going on in the workplace that are harmful for other people and nobody does anything about it, that's not okay. I'm not going to stick around that kind of a place because I don't want that, in kind of environment, because then something could then happen to me later down the line that, I don't want to have to deal with. So I'm just not about being in a place where I'm going to have issues. I'm really looking for something that's going to basically give me a little bit more breathing room when it comes to finances and stuff, because with the inflation stuff going on, that's been super, super nerve-wracking for me personally. Not that, we're, struggling per se. I mean, things could be better, but it's one of those things where, I just want to be able to have a little bit of room, to do things. But I want to make sure that, we're going to have enough room for stuff. Because, we're able to pay bills and stuff, but we just don't have a lot left over after all of that. And I would like for us to be able to have that extra room just because it would be nice. It'd be nice to be able to, have more than less, And especially, like I said, this place I've been working at for 3.5 years at this point. I've fought and fought and fought to get a raise with them, and they've told me no because it's not in the budget and whatever, which was bullshit because of the fact that back at the end of last year we had somebody leave who their amount of money that they made would have been able to be split between myself and my coworkers, since we're the only two people on this team anymore that you know, are working on this team. So I don't know, I became very frustrated with a lot of it, and I just feel like that I'm not getting the money that I think I deserve with having been here for as long as I have, and essentially having taken, in a sense, a more leadership role. Not necessarily like 100% that though, because my coworker is about basically an equal with me. Like, we don't tell each other necessarily what to do. It's more of like, hey, we've got this stuff, how do we want to split it up kind of thing. But regardless, you know, we both deserve a raise, because my coworker has been working with these people longer than I have. Like, she had been there 2 years at least before I had even joined up with the original team I worked under when I first started. So it only makes sense to me that she also gets the raise, because of the fact that, like, you know, she's been there longer. She's been doing way more than we initially had been slated to do, and we're not getting properly compensated for that, in my opinion. I think that that what they've been doing is, in a sense, taking advantage of the fact that they think they don't have to pay us more than what we're currently making, because of the fact that, you know, it's all stuff technically that we've been able to do, we just never had to until now, and that's complete bull to me. Trying not to get my hopes up too much with this interview, but from what it sounded like, they were really interested in talking with me, so I would not be surprised if I end up, like, being asked, you know, if I wanted to accept a job from them on the spot. But I don't think I'm going to say anything, like, right away, because I want to, like, make sure, especially, I'm going to be taking notes of, like, the questions I'm going to ask them at the end of the interview. I'm going to, like, really look at what they say to me and whether or not it seems like it's a good fit, that kind of stuff. And so I don't want to, like, give an answer right away. Like, I would like to be able to sit and talk with my husband about, you know, this new opportunity, because that would also then come with a lot of changes. Here's the thing. I like the place I work for. Do not get me wrong. The place I work for has been good to me to an extent, and I have loved all of my coworkers. I don't have any issues with any person I work with, truthfully. Like, that says a lot. But I don't want to continue down this path where, if I stay with these people for any longer, that I'm going to never get the money I deserve. Because my coworker who left at the end of last year had been working for them for 10 years and was making the same amount I was, when she had way more experience, had been there way longer, and had basically taken on the team lead role within our group, because our other team lead had left earlier that year because she found a better opportunity, because, again, she wasn't being paid what she was asking of them, because of the fact she had so much experience. And I'm just getting so annoyed. And I've also been seeing that a lot of people in this company that I work for are leaving for better opportunities, which makes me think, you know, how much of what the reason people are leaving is because they're asking for this money, with the fact that they've been working so much harder and doing so many new things, and nobody's actually doing anything. And here's the thing too, is that I work technically under a contracting agency. I don't work for the company itself. So there's only so much that the contracting agencies can do, and there's only so much that my direct boss can do, because she works for the company, not for the contracting agency, and so she doesn't really have any sway of, you know, how much I get paid. Like, I don't know, there's a lot of other moving parts that I am aware of in terms of why I'm not being paid what I want, but it doesn't change the fact that I have fought for over a year for myself and my coworker to be paid properly, and the best that they did was they changed our health plan by giving us over to a different contracting agency that was more in line with the majority of the people I work with that have been here for, you know, however long. But the health plan apparently isn't that good. My parents' health insurance that I'm still under, because I'm under the age of 26, is still better than what I would normally get, according to what my husband had researched. I deserve some credibility. I deserve some monetary compensation that reflects the fact that I've worked hard to get where I am in 3 years, and I think that I would like to do more, but I'm not going to until I get some kind of recompense of that. And I know everyone talks about right now this idea about quiet quitting and all that, and I'm not saying that I'm doing the idea of quiet quitting at all. Like, I don't believe that that's the case, but I definitely understand like what it is that people are saying about doing things like quiet quitting, because why else would you work hard if you're not going to actually get anything in return? Why is it that, you know, employers find it so difficult to understand that the reason they have employees who aren't, you know, going above the expectations that they're expected of is because, you know, you're not giving them anything to reward them for going the extra mile. You're, if anything, punishing them by adding on even more workload to them that they don't want. And a lot of times, too, adding on that workload is things that they don't actually have any scope of, they've never done before, but they're being expected to do because it supposedly is part of their objectives or daily duties or whatever, but half the time it's not. And the employers are just like, especially in a corporate setting, throwing things at their employees without realizing that they might not have been trained properly, and then a lot of times for people, what I've heard, they get punished for that. Now, in my case, thankfully, if I'm not trained on something because it's new and there's always new changes to the platforms we use and all these things, like I get trained on it. And if I say that I've never been trained on something before in like a certain area, there is no issue on training me on those things. But at the same time, like it would be nice to know that with all of the things I've been getting training for that are outside of what I've been doing and what I've had to do in the past, that, you know, again, my pay reflects that amount of training I've had to get, that it reflects the amount of extra work that I've had to do. Because when I first started with this company 3 years ago, half of the shit that I've been doing, I never had to do. There was a whole different dynamic in terms of my position and what I was particularly doing when I started that changed so often. And honestly, the only time we ever got, in particular, a raise was when it was basically cost of living adjustments. And then when we changed to a different contracting agency back in April of 2021, the first time we changed contracting agencies, that was when we all got a bit of a raise because of the fact that they wanted to round the rest of us up to the next dollar amount because we were all working like just under that, which it really was like peanuts basically, like that we got on top of what we were already making. So it really didn't make much of a difference. But they thought that that was going to be like the best option given what the company supposedly has the budget for, which I, again, think is bullshit. I think that they're actually, they have a lot more money than they're letting on that they can use to pay us through the contracting agency. I'm very bitter. I'm very upset with this whole thing. So the whole reason I'm even going to this interview is I'm hoping to find something that's going to be better for me. And again, is going to, you know, have a wage that reflects the work I'm doing. Again, I just wish that because I love this company so much that I've worked for and I've had, you know, a great experience with my boss and my coworkers, I've never had really any major issues with anyone I've worked with other than people just thinking that I can wave a magic wand sometimes and I can't, and they understand that after a time. I've never had any massive issues. I have been very fortunate for the last couple of years to be able to work from home because of the fact that I live so far away from the office. And I feel like that only goes so far. And I think, too, that a big reason why I'm looking for other places is that I've had a lot of problems staying home all the time. I am a huge introvert. Do not get me wrong. There's some times where being at home and working from home can be really damaging for somebody who also has massive amounts of anxiety and feels like they have to constantly keep themselves busy all the time. And that leads me then to fretting about the fact that because I'm working and I have to stay online, I can't go do things like, you know, clean up the house a little bit. So on my lunch break, a lot of times, other than having to take Oscar for his walks and stuff, I feel like then that is my only time to get any kind of housework done. Otherwise, I have to stay online. And so that's really stressful because, like, I can't do everything. And my husband never expects me to do anything. But when you have the kind of brain I do where you always feel like you are the one that has to do everything because nobody else is going to do it, even if somebody else is willing to take on some of the responsibility, you can't let them because it's not going to be either done the way that I want, or it's going to be something where I feel guilty that they are the ones that have to pick up the slack, and it's my fault that I didn't have the time. And as nice as it would be to continue to be able to just work from home and like maybe have my husband also be able to work from home because he was trying to find a job that would allow him to stay at home more, like, it's just one of those things where I think that maybe being out of the home for a job for the first time in a while would probably be better for me, because it would allow me to be able to separate better work life from home life. So apparently my camera cut out at some point there. I don't quite know exactly where, but this is the finished makeup look. Really simple. I don't do too much anymore. I've pretty much limited myself to using really only one eyeshadow palette, which is the Tartelette Full Bloom one. It's the big one, because I find that I like the colors in this just a lot more. They're much more natural. It's like a very neutral palette, so it's got like a lot of the brown, gold, pinks, for a little bit of color, but that's pretty much it. And then the lipstick I wear is a NYX one. It's one of the Liquid Suede, I think. It's the Lingerie Double XL in the shade Stamina, I think. Yeah, Stamina, shade 21. But yeah, I don't know. I've just been thinking a lot with trying to find ways that are going to better my mental health overall. And I have known for a while that that one of the things I think has been a huge hit to my mental health is this idea that, like, with being at home all the time, I feel like I constantly have to do everything in this house. And that's not the case, but trying to tell yourself that when you're an unmedicated, mentally ill person does not work sometimes. And I realized in the last couple of weeks that it probably was not a very good idea for me to go off my anxiety meds back in June. Because if you don't know, I did go off my anti-anxiety meds. I was on a very low dose back in June, and I thought that for the longest time I was doing okay, that I was fine, that I was actually better off without them. And if anything, I've noticed in the last probably month and a half going on 2 months, since probably about like middle of July at least, that my mental health was only really being masked, that the medication I was on was only hitting the intrusive thoughts that I tend to have from time to time, and it wasn't helping with much else. And also the fact that I had a lot more mental problems than I had originally thought, to the point where I am going to have to figure out soon whether I stick with this company I've been working with or not. I need to get on new health insurance, and I need to find a new doctor and get myself on different medication. And more importantly, though, too, getting a diagnosis of some kind, whether it's an extreme anxiety disorder of some kind, something involving ADHD, maybe even possibly bipolar, because I do believe that I have exhibited a lot of traits that are synonymous with those that have bipolar. But again, with an anxiety disorder that I already have of some kind, it could be literally anything, and it could only just be anxiety by itself. And so that's why I need to go see a new doctor, because the doctor I was going to, I don't want to see anymore, and I need to be on new health insurance as it is. So it's just, there's a lot of things going on, and I think that one step that would be helpful would be to kind of establish a boundary between work and home again. Because I feel like, if I remember correctly, when I was back in the office, it was easier for me to have that work and home life separation. And while I do enjoy being able to stay at home and stay in my pajamas and be comfortable and be able to work from home and not have to worry about driving, so far away for work every day, it has become a bit of a burden. And I need to either get that sorted out, or if I can't necessarily get it sorted out, get my health stuff sorted out either in place of that or with that, whichever one ends up happening. No matter what, the health stuff has to come in sometime, but whether or not I can also include a work-life boundary would be ideal. But I guess we'll see. But anyway, I gotta get back to doing some work before I end off the day. I need to clean my glasses too because these are a travesty. But I gotta get stuff prepared. Like I said, my Uber's gonna be here in about an hour and a half, and my friend's supposed to be here by 3 to watch Oscar for me. So I gotta get started and everything, but see if I can do a little OOTD of some kind. But yeah, I got this big black cardigan. It's a little chilly today. It's like not even gonna hit 70 today, which is gonna be weird. But then I have this really cute, basically short sleeve green shirt and black skinny pants, and then just a pair of tan nude flat. But anyway, I'm gonna update you guys later because I don't really have much of a reading update. I haven't really picked up the last of Quarter Silver Flames yet today, and I'm probably not going to be able to until later tonight, but I'll let you guys know how the interview went, and we'll kind of go from there. Okay, so it's 4:15. I'm back home from my interview. I'm keeping the makeup on, first of all, because I worked hard on my makeup, damn it. I'm keeping it on for a couple more hours. But that was a kind of weird interview because I get there. The only person I talk to is the current administrative assistant that's there. And essentially what it seemed like is that they're looking more so for part-time people, but I don't want something that's part-time. I need something that's full-time. The guy was really nice, very sweet, about my age, I think, and he said he was still in school. It seemed to go well otherwise. My questions I had all got answered for the most part. A couple things that this guy wasn't able to answer because he didn't even 100% know, especially if it's a full-time thing, because he only works part-time. So I did, though, apply while I was waiting for my Uber for another administrative assistant position, but according to the posting, which I did screenshot this time so I could have a corroborating evidence of it, is that it is a full-time position with a salary of between $17 to $23 an hour, which $17 already is more than I make now. So I filled out the application. I had to do a skills test, basically, which was a lot of strategizing, problem solving in terms of scheduling things and making sure that documents that are sent in, are placed where they need to be, and then I have the right documents, things like that for like expense reports, whatever, like typical office related things. So I hope that will lead to something good soon, because that posting was about 3 days ago that it was initially posted. But as far as this place I just went to today, they said that it is likely I will hear from them tomorrow about if they would like to offer me the job, or not. I wasn't expecting something right out the gate with applying and getting interviews to stick, but I definitely went in there, like usual, expecting way more of an ordeal than it ended up being. It was very chill, but at the same time, like I said, it just kind of was meh. It didn't really feel like something that I was 100% interested in. Not that the work is not what I'm interested in. It was more of the way that it was, I guess, presented. And really, like I said, the biggest hang-up, like I said, is the fact that it's probably a part-time position only. And they marketed it as a full-time position to probably draw some other people in. I don't know. Or maybe I misread the posting initially because it's gone now. But maybe it was only part-time. I don't know. I have no idea. So I got home, changed, relieved our puppy sitter, and Oscar's very happy that I'm back home. He's currently laying behind the chair. But I don't have to be doing anything work-wise. I would only at this point have like half an hour of work left, so I don't have to do anything with work because I logged out for the day. I will have to, though, start Tuesday and Wednesday early. I'm going to have to start at 7 a.m. both days, which is fine. It's not a big deal. It's just an hour earlier than normal. And I still take my hour lunch and all that, so it's not like a big deal. So what I am going to do is I'm going to sit here and finish editing my podcast. I started on that during one of my breaks. I started going through and editing the podcast. And I've got my last video, my Friday video, uploading right now. So once that's uploaded and scheduled and the podcast is done, I'm done. And then I just have to make sure to keep on top of TikToks and stuff like that. So I think, though, for the rest of the night, after all that's done, will be getting back to reading A Court of Silver Flames. I think that is going to be my night. I think that's going to be what I focus on because I really want to finish A Court of Silver Flames. I'm down to like the last 150 pages, I think. And it's the only book I needed to focus on today in particular because, like, I was going to finish it and then tomorrow start up Babel by R.F. Kuang, which I'm just so excited about. So I don't know whether or not I will come to you guys tonight about my thoughts on A Court of Silver Flames, but I definitely will tomorrow. So I guess we'll see where that goes. But if I don't talk to you beforehand, I will see you guys tomorrow. Good morning, everybody. It is almost 9:45 in the morning, and I'm able to take a quick break from work to let you guys know that I did last night finish A Court of Silver Flames by Sarah J. Maas. Oh my gosh. I am floored. Truly, I am. So here's the thing. I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. I, after a while, did get very annoyed with Nesta, and I think it's because, like, it's intended that you're supposed to see her struggle and see her make really stupid decisions, even though she knows they're not the right decisions, because this book really goes into understanding all of the traumatic things that she has dealt with up to this point, the flashbacks that she has on a regular basis because of that. Like, this poor girl has massive amounts of PTSD. And also, on top of that, before the events that had transpired with A Court of Thorns and Roses following Feyre, it was known that Nesta was not really a good sister, ever. She was very spiteful. She mentions at one point in this book, actually, where when her father had lost all his money, that she kind of like would rather starve to spite him because all he wanted to do was take care of his children, and she was mad at him for something that he had no control over and still blamed him. And then with the death of her mother, who apparently their mother was very hard on Nesta in particular, as well as her grandmother, she kind of had that thing about her where, as the eldest daughter, she kind of was thought that to break the cycle, break the curse of the family in a way, but it ended up being Feyre who was the one that did it. And so there's a lot of resentment for Feyre, and then on top of it, having been thrown into the cauldron and turned into a high fae without her consent, that also led to a lot of resentment for Feyre because she blamed Feyre for the fact that all of that happened. And then when she loses her father in the war that happens in A Court of Wings and Ruin, you know, that was like almost the straw that broke the camel's back, really. It was one of those things where, like, on top of everything else, the fact that she lost her father, who did nothing but care for her and try to protect her, despite making some poor decisions along the way of some kind, like, it was a lot of guilt and a lot of shame on her part, and it manifested itself into anger, which is why she lashed out and acted out, which is what we kind of saw in A Court of Frost and Starlight, where she was drinking a lot, spending a lot of money, sleeping around, you know, all those things. And on top of all of that, she is unwilling to accept the fact that Cassian is her mate. And even though he's actively trying to, you know, change his ways from what he'd been doing and show that he cares about her, she's been, like, stiff-arming him because of the fact that she's afraid to let anybody else close to her, because everybody that she had that was close to her died or something happened to them. And she, again, has a lot of trauma that keeps her unable to even stay connected to her two sisters who are still alive. And we learned that over the course of this, you know, a lot of that is the crux of her issues is the fact that she has dealt with so much trauma in what feels like a very short amount of time. There's a lot of unanswered questions. There's a lot of things that she still doesn't know how to process because she's not really given herself an opportunity to actually deal with the things that she's needed to, that it kind of just has created this wall around her that over the course of the book you see Cassian start to chip away at. And eventually that wall does come down, I will say. I think that this book really is all about Nesta breaking down that wall forever, which I did not think was going to happen in this book. I'm actually really surprised with how, not necessarily quick everything happened in terms of the book, but like the fact that we got to see her break down those walls. Good stuff happens at the very end that I'm not going to spoil. And there's other things too involving this world that are extensions of the fighting that's been going on. You learn that there's like another group of people who are looking to harm Rhysand and Feyre and just all of the, you know, people that we've already been trying to protect at this point. There's more people that are kind of coming up out of the woodwork that may have had connections to the King of Hybern, and basically they're trying to figure out how they can bring down Rhysand and his kingdom and all these things. And so with Nesta having to go off and train so that she can, one, work on whatever the hell it is that she's got going on, but two, so that she can fight if she needs to, that kind of develops the relationship between her and Cassian, and you learn a lot about Cassian's background as well, where he came from, how exactly he got to be involved with Rhys and Asriel as well. And there's a ton of other things that get brought up in here that like you kind of have to read for yourself if you're a fan of this series. If you haven't read it yet, there's just a lot of really good things that happen in terms of developing the world, developing characters over the course of this book. But the reason I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars as opposed to a 5 is that at some points in the book, Nesta's kind of stiff arming got to be really annoying. You just wanted her to stop being so stubborn and stop pushing everybody away, because you know that she knows it's not good, that she's doing this because she doesn't think she deserves anything. But at the same time, she knows that she does. She knows that people care about her. It just gets so frustrating sometimes to read and listen to what exactly it is that she is doing, because of the fact that, like, you know she knows better. It's kind of just something where, like, the amount of frustration I felt was a little too much for me to be like, yeah, that was justified. Like, it was pure, like, anger at this character. And again, like, it was kind of the point over the course of the novel, do not get me wrong, but it got so much to the point where there were a couple of times in the middle of this book in particular where I was like, good God, is this going to be the entire thing? Because if this is going to be the entire book, I don't really know if I want to continue reading for Nesta. Like, I'm just so sick of it. Like, it was more frustration with the writing than, I guess, than the character itself. Just the fact that it did feel like Sarah was doing a little too much in some cases, but at the same time, like, again, it's understandable because Nesta's got a lot of baggage that you have to sift through before you get to who she is. And I will say that I loved her progression in this, because she goes from being this whiny little bitchy character to being like actually physically strong, mentally strong, and she even develops a friend group that like she's needed for so long, and it like is so heartwarming that like it makes me excited to then see what else is going to be coming out with this trilogy, because there are a lot of things that are still, you know, on the horizon, things that are still going to be coming in. But then also, like, the way that the story itself wraps up, you do feel like Nesta has really changed, that she's really become something that she should have been a long time ago. And it's only having been through what she's gone through, and then in this book, finding out so much about herself and what she's capable of, and exactly what her place is in this world when she didn't think she had a place, that really changes a lot of her perspective. And there's a lot of things too that goes on with Feyre and Rhysand. They are still a very integral part of this world. Elaine, not so much. She's kind of like in the background, and there is a point where she comes in that Nesta like kind of has to try to protect her from doing something that Nesta is afraid will, you know, cause her harm. But she's only here like every now and then, like especially in the first half of the book, and then the second half she's not really there 100%. But Feyre is like a very important part of the story because of the fact that there are things that go on between Feyre and Rhysand that affect the overall like world building, that affect the overall kind of stakes that there are in this world. And I'm not going to say what, because I don't want to spoil it for anybody. But for those of you that know, I about bawled by the very end because things happened to Farah that I was really scared about, but I was overall really, really pleased with this. I was really pleased with the fact that I feel like this book really doesn't redeem Nesta in 100% all the ways that I would have liked, but it does shine a new light on her and does show that she has changed her ways and is looking to continue that. And while it is going to be incredibly hard for her still to come to grasp with some things that she still needs to kind of work through, this book really showcases what she's capable of and what she's able to do. So I really did enjoy this, and I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. So this was for one of my Bookoplothon prompts, as well as for the Court of Thorns and Roses read-along I was doing with Princess at Castle Library. But for Bookoplothon, this book was to complete my pattern and text prompt, which basically meant like the cover either had to have a pattern that took up most of the cover, or text that took over at least half of the cover, which the text for this one did. And I am now down to my final Bookoplothon prompt for the month, and my next read, which is also Princess's book club pick for the Royally Booked Book Club, and that is Babel, and I'm so excited. This has been one of my most anticipated reads for the entire year, and that #1 spot for the entirety of 2022. I've been excited for this book since Rebecca had come out about it when she was working on the second book in the Poppy War. I remember specifically seeing on her Twitter that she was writing a kind of Victorian-inspired work that was going to involve a lot of dark academia vibes and also a little bit of a fantasy thing, but not too much, and that she was doing a lot of research about translation work, basically. And this book is pretty much that. It is a dark academia inspired novel that basically talks about the colonization of language, and there is a kind of fight going on, maybe an impending war of some kind, but basically we have a character who is from more of an Asian country, I believe, if I remember the synopsis correctly, who then goes to London to study translation, and he gets a part of this like society of some kind, and then finds out that there is a very, very big fight happening that is going to basically pull him in a couple different directions. One of which being, you know, his home, because that's being affected by this, and then his work, his study, you know, the things that he has learned in terms of like translation and all these things. Like, I don't know the specifics, but the synopsis makes it seem like this is going to be an internal battle as well as an external one, which I always love that. I love internal and external battles. It's going to be great. But I have the ebook for this on my Kindle, and it is a bit of a chunkier book. It's, I mean, under 600 pages though, which I'm kind of surprised by. But then again, thinking back on the Poppy War books, those were usually between 500 to 600 pages for especially an adult fantasy. So it's technically on the lower end of like a chunky book, but it definitely will take me some time to get through. So very excited for this. I'm looking to get basically a little over 150 pages into this today, and I will be working on this for the majority of this week until about Friday, because Friday is the start of the 24-hour readathon for Brandon Sanderson, and I'll be picking up The Way of Kings for that, and there'll be a separate vlog for that as well. But for the next few days at the very least, I'm going to be reading Babel, which, again, I'm so excited. This is going to be completing my final Bookoplothon prompt, which, again, I have to pull out my reading journal because I can't remember anything anymore. This is going to be completing the buildings prompt for Bookoplothon, and is my final, like, set prompt. It's the final prompt I had received when I had done my first rolls in my TBR video. So after this, what I will be doing is continuing to roll for Bookoplothon, but I'm going to try to see if any of the other books I have slated for this month are going to fit that, because of the fact that I don't want to really put in too many more full-length books, but if I don't have anything that fits like a certain prompt, I will try to use one of my graphic novels or mangas to fulfill that spot, because of the fact that those are a lot shorter. I can get through them quicker. Also, if I can get my Darker Shade of Magic books on there, that'll work as well, because then it kind of puts that at a higher priority. But Very excited to start this here when I can take another break from work. But for right now, I gotta get back to it. I gotta kind of just get the ball rolling. I've been up since about 7 a.m. to work because of the fact that I had to leave early yesterday. So I'm gonna be basically working until 5 like normally, but today and tomorrow I have to start early. So it's gonna be interesting, but I will talk to all you guys later when I've made some progress in Babel. Okay, so my battery may die on me while I'm talking, but good morning, everybody. It is about 7:45 in the morning on Wednesday. I had to be up early again today for work because I was making up time for the fact that I left early on Monday. So after today, I'll be back to working at 8 o'clock starting off, so that'll be nice. But I did last night get through the first 152, 153 pages of Babel by R.F. Kuang. Okay, so this is really interesting. This is very, very different, obviously, from the Poppy War. Like, we have a more contemporary-based world, for one. We have a kind of, like, interesting, maybe magic thing, but it's not quite magic. It's a little bit of science, a little bit of magic kind of thing. It's very interesting, which I'll explain in a minute. And we have a huge dark academia vibe, which I was already feeling because of the fact that this is taking place mostly at a school. And this is really, really cool. So we start off the story where there's this man named Richard Lovell who travels to Canton, which is a city in China. And he finds this young boy that basically his mother has died. There's been a lot of sickness going around in China at the time. All right, there my battery cut out. But basically he ends up taking this kid in, like I said, and he gives him this option of either staying in Canton and basically dying poor and very likely sickly, or if he would like to be able to live, he can go with Richard back to England to study, to basically be able to go to this Oxford school that would then allow him to become a translator, and he would learn things like Latin, Greek, and like various other languages. And in the process of all of this, he would then have to change his actual name to something that is more white sounding to fit in basically with contemporary society, which is like mid-1800s in England. So we're talking like Victorian era basically, which R.F. Kuang states at the very beginning in an author's note that there were some creative liberties taken. So some things are a little different in the book than what actually were happening at the time in history because it had to fit her story a little bit better. Things like that. Like basically very logical changes that were necessary to either change up the school for the purposes of the book or the overall world itself. And he's going through like the whole normal things you do when you go to school. You make friends. He has a very tight-knit friend group that are his cohort, or the people who he typically will have classes with because they're like in his same degree, you know, they're in his same path, whatever. And he learns about the school and specifically about Babel, which Babel is the tower in Oxford that essentially the translators will work out of. A lot of that tower is dedicated to translation work, which he is studying. And you learn that throughout this story, there's this thing called these silver bars. At the very beginning, Richard basically takes a silver bar and uses it to heal Richard when he is sick and dying. And Robin ends up being, you know, obviously very grateful for that. And then he wants to know more about these bars. And you learn over the course of time that the bars are basically a conduit of sorts to doing certain things. By engraving on them certain words, you are able to then do very magical things that probably wouldn't normally be done in like normal society. So that's why I'm saying that there's a little bit of a magic, a little bit of science thing involved, because I don't know whether or not it is purely magic or it is purely science. It does, I guess, lean toward more of the magic side, but there's still some things in terms of how they work that may come from a more scientific nature that we haven't really figured out as of yet. But then you learn too that Robin accidentally helps this group of thieves steal something from, I think it's Babel, or at least one of the other towers where translation work will tend to happen. And he finds out that somebody that's involved in that group named Griffin. Griffin basically tells Robin that he's from a group called the Hermes Society. And what they do is they steal the silver bars from the school and sells them to lower income families, people who basically wouldn't be able to afford them otherwise, because apparently these silver bars are really only used in kind of more white society, richer society kind of thing, and it's very hard for anybody else to get the hold of them, and the silver bars can be worth a lot to lower income families for like things like food, clothing, medicine, whatever they might need. And Griffin starts explaining to Robin that this Robin Hood-esque, funny enough, thing that they're doing is because of the fact that they don't believe that it's right that the school, for instance, has all of these silver bars that they practically only use for certain purposes, and they're still trying to study, and they have like this overflow of them, and they don't understand why they can't share with that to the rest of the public kind of thing. You learn too that the school is very based on these silver bars. The silver bars actually protect what are called grammaticas, which are essentially books that in the course of studying a certain language and learning about the translation work of a certain language to other languages like English, you basically have this, it's like almost like a journal, a set of journals that explore the study and explore the progression of study in these languages in terms of how do we translate them? What does it mean that some things are hard to translate? What does it mean that, you know, something is translated in this certain way but then has a different connotation in, you know, another language kind of thing? So this book is very focused on that aspect of translation, which I'm not surprised by, because if I'm not mistaken, I believe R.F. Kuang herself had a little bit of translation work under her belt with having worked with various Chinese historical things. I think she might have been some kind of Chinese historian of some kind, like that was part of her study, which probably includes a lot of translation work. And so there's probably a lot of translation rhetoric, like linguistics rhetoric within this, that I find to be fascinating, because it's also very philosophical. It's also very, you know, like, you know, we don't have all the answers for this, but this is what we can assume, and this is kind of our best guess kind of thing. And that's pretty much all I will be able to talk about right now, because that is kind of the gist of the first quarter of the book in terms of setting up the plot, understanding who the characters are, and I'm going to play some trigger warnings, because there are some things that I think would be really triggering for some people, especially for my readers of color. So there is racism heavily in this, not just on the part of Robin being from China, but there's a character who is black, there's a character who is Indian that is in this that get heavily bullied by the white students. There also is some misogyny. I think that basically, like, it's pretty normal in this time period, to be quite honest. It's not an excuse for the actions of the characters, but in this time, women are still not really being allowed to go into school and everything. Like I said, there's racism involved in this, but there's a very particular level of racism that is going to probably be a little uncomfortable for some people, because of the fact that this is, like I said, based in the 1800s. So thoughts about race and thoughts about people of color were very, very different in terms of how outspoken people were about race. For instance, there's a mention where in England, at the time of this book, England had just released this abolitionist like law where they weren't going to basically do slavery, but they would do some kind of like transitional period for like 6 or 7 years, essentially, where they were going to try to do some kind of like servitude thing where it wasn't slavery, like the person was able to go free and all that, but they would still have to serve certain people for like so long. With that, there was a conversation placed between Richard Lovell and a couple of his friends where they were like, this is a bad idea, these people need to be kept in line. Every single person that's not white basically is just a means to an end, and they are, you know, therefore either my property or the property of the people that own them, and, you know, it's better for us to get a hold of them so that we can teach them the right way before they go off and become hooligans and all kinds of other really nasty rhetoric about race in general. But again, keep in mind, if you read this, it is very prevalent in this time period. This is something that was very well thought of, and people were, like I said, much more outspoken about it. It was something that was part of dinner conversation in terms of also politics. It was not abnormal for these things to come up because of the fact that, you know, it was something that was more accepted in society at this point. If we look at the US by the time this story takes on, which is about the 1830s, slavery was still a thing. The Civil War was still 30 plus years before the events of this book. And so while England was a little bit more progressive in some cases, they still were more of the same because of the fact that they were still advocating for the enslavement of not just black people, but other races as well. And another huge thing too within that is that part of the reason that Robin is where he is in England with Richard Lovell is because he was literally stolen away from his home country to be used as a way to encourage diversity of languages within Oxford. But you also see that with Ramiz, who is Robin's other friend in his cohort, who is our Indian character. You learn that he was picked up from this other white man named William, I think, and kind of had the same dealing that Robin did, where he was taught, English, and he was trained to become a translator so that the school could then use him to translate works from India and things like that. So it's a very important story. We all kind of knew going into this was going to be about the colonization of language, and also just about colonization in general, with the fact that our main character was, from the synopsis, taken from his home in China all the way taken to England. It's just very interesting to see the different kinds of talks about racism that come up in the story. And again, I think that based on the time period and how outspoken some characters are about people of color, it will be a little uncomfortable for some people. It definitely is a little uncomfortable for me because of the fact that, like, I know that what they're saying isn't right, that it's, mean and disgusting and all these things. But going into it with understanding that, it's going to probably be easier for a lot of people to read this. But I will say the language is also very, very kind of difficult sometimes. I've been annotating this book like crazy on my Kindle, but the language is really set well for the time period. R.F. Kuang has always been able to really write super well. It is very academic sounding for this kind of a book, which is also different from the Poppy War, where the Poppy War was a little bit more simplistic, but still complicated enough with it being a fantasy that, like, it made sense. And it's just so fascinating to see the way that she developed the story and how she was able to weave in all of these different things within the first quarter of the book still, mind you, which make this by itself 150 pages in to feel like it's been a complete novel. And I do think that for a lot of people, though, that are getting into this for the first time, that might not be used to this kind of style and also this type of story, it will probably be something where they feel like they're slogging through it. I definitely could see that, where they would see that it might be a little slow. But I'm enjoying the crap out of it. I am really, really enjoying it, and I'm very excited to continue with it today. My reading goal for today is to get almost another 150 pages in. I'm going to basically be getting to the 290 area today, which yesterday I spent most of my evening reading this, and I was perfectly fine. So Bree, I think, is going to be having sprints tonight. So if she does, I'm going to probably be joining in on that. But for right now, I gotta get back to doing some work, so I will talk to all you guys a little bit later. Hey guys, so it is about 10:42 in the evening and everybody has hopped off of Bree Sprints and gone to Bree Sprints. So basically partway through Bree from Sharee Reads Sprints, Bree from Locked Booktician came in and was like, hey, I might do my own sprints, you know, today, maybe after yours or something, and we all just said, fuck it, let's go to Bree's channel. Let's just go do more sprints over there. So I am currently waiting for the live show to start. It starts in like 2 minutes, but I guess we're starting off with a sprint right away. Oh, here we go. It's going to be an hour and a half. So I'm going to spend the next hour and a half working through more of Babel. I'm currently on page 226, I think. Yes, 226. My goal for tonight is to get to 291, and I still want to try and get through more of A Darker Shade of Magic if I can, if I'm not too tired. I don't have to wake up tomorrow morning until 8 now because of the fact that I did both of my early days this week already, but we're going to see how I'm feeling because I've got some popcorn here that I'm going to finish up. I've got a glass of wine that I've been working on, and we're going to kind of see how this goes, because I'm really enjoying Babel, do not get me wrong, but it is very heavy on a lot of things that I already kind of talked about earlier, specifically the translation rhetoric. That's kind of just been a given to me since like the beginning of the book that was going to be a heavy focus. But as of now, I'm about 40% of the way through, and honestly, there's been a lot of stuff that has happened that I'm kind of like, what else are we getting here, Rebecca? Like, what else is this story, Rebecca? Because there's like, it feels like there's supposed to be an end at some point, but it's not coming anytime soon, so I don't know what the heck's going on here. But anyway, we're gonna go ahead and continue with this sprint and just kind of get started. So speak to you guys probably tomorrow with an update on where I get. Hey guys, so it is 11:18 in the morning on Thursday. Got a lot of reading done last night. Like a lot. I got to page 291 of Babel, which was my reading goal for last night, and I'm just really proud of myself. I was up till about almost midnight. I got to bed like 11:55, which I was like, that's impressive. But I'm so enjoying it. I was saying in Bree Sprints last night that Babel is not going to be for everybody. It's not going to be like how people were fawning over the Poppy War, because this is so much more a story that is about the love of translation work, but then also the inherent racist issues and colonizational issues that are involved with language as a whole, and the translation of language from different areas to English. And I feel like that this is going to be a book where it's going to be very hit or miss for people because of the fact that it's so heavy on the language rhetoric that, like, not everybody's going to be super enthralled with that. I have a distinct feeling that when a lot of the reviews start coming in, people are going to be talking about the fact that it was boring because of all the language rhetoric, and it takes so much for you to sift through all of that to then get to the main plot of the story. And because of how bogged down it is with the language rhetoric, it feels like it takes forever to read it. And I will say that I do feel like this is a lot more of a slow-going book than I was expecting, but I'm still enjoying it. I've never really been somebody that's been like a translation rhetoric person, but I love language. I love, the language that has developed over time. I took a linguistics class in college, and I really, really enjoyed the exploration of how various languages use, different modes of communication and speaking. And this is very much something I think that those of you who, like Rebecca, are very involved in translation work and you have a love for that, this will be something you might enjoy a little bit more. But the crux of this story is really about the colonization of language itself, and then therefore colonization in general. Because of the fact that, like, we have a character who is taken from his homeland at a very young age, taken to England, where he is having to assimilate to the culture and essentially is told to pretty much renounce everything he had learned up until the age of 8. Unless you've been in a situation where you have had your entire upbringing just completely wiped from the table and said, this is how you're supposed to live, you are no longer able to live this particular way, you will not necessarily connect with Robin. I don't connect with Robin because of the fact that I'm not an Asian person, I do not have Asian heritage, and I have not been in a situation where somebody has come in and basically destroyed my entire world, saying that it's less than, and taken me off to somewhere else to then bombard me with all kinds of knowledge that they deem as necessary for me so that I can then meet their ends of what they're asking for. And there's a huge conversation that comes up in this about the idea that, like, that's wrong of these people to go into different countries and basically steal away children to then make them into what they want so that they can then use them as labor, in a sense, for translation work. I mean, I think of it as almost a form of slavery, to be, perfectly frank, because of the fact that they are looked down upon, and they are only looked upon as more labor to then expand their library. While they may treat these children that they bring over well with a stipend and food and clothing and kind of a societal ranking, but it doesn't change the fact that they stole these children from their homelands and call it rescuing. Because they didn't rescue them. I mean, they may have taken them from pretty dire situations, like Robin was living with his dead mother who had died of a plague that was going through, and he nearly died himself, but it doesn't change the fact that Lovell basically stole him from his home and said that everything he had experienced was a life of squalor and was less than, and living in England is the best thing, and being with white people is the best thing. It's something where, like, you have to look into it from a historical lens and really see the fact that all of the things that are happening to every single non-white, non-English person that's in that story is basically being whitewashed. They are taken from their lives and whitewashed by the school in order to make them then usable for their purposes. And unfortunately, he has this issue where it's like he wants to be loyal to the things that he learned in the work that he loves doing, because he does love translation work after having been involved in it for so long. But if somebody hadn't also taken him away from his home and basically forced him to do these things, whether or not you would say, he agreed to it, because what 8-year-old kid is going to fully agree to something in exchange for food and understand the consequences of saying yes, regardless of the good things that are coming from it? It doesn't change the fact, though, that he has been forced to do this stuff. And within that, he does feel guilt because he thinks that he has, given up everything from his past. He no longer feels connected to his motherland. He no longer feels like he is able to fit in, either as a foreigner in an English country or as an English person, even though he's lived there for most of his life. It's a very multi-layered book that I feel like everyone's going to get hung up on with the language rhetoric that's involved. But this is so much what I had wanted for Rebecca. I wanted her to come out with a book that talked about these things, the issues of colonization, just like she talked about briefly within the Poppy War, and bring out a story that involved academia and how whitewashed kids who are brought from other countries are in academic systems, and especially in a time frame where that was like super prevalent. That was a huge part of what the 1800s did, even after the abolitionist movement in Europe, was that there still was a lot of racism. There was still a lot of, people who thought that
kids who were from other countries were less than, and they were exploited for their labor, because how the hell else were they going to be able to get food and shelter and clothing? Like, they were fully exploited. And this is just such a very, very interesting book that talks about that, that looks at that, you know, issue. And I don't know, I just feel like this is a really good book. I don't think it's necessarily going to be a 5 out of 5 stars, but it is going to be at least a 4-star, because of the fact that I just really love what Rebecca has really done with this book. I think that this definitely has been a labor of love, and it shows to me personally. And I'm excited to continue with it, because we've gotten, especially almost halfway through the book, to a really interesting dilemma that Robin is involved in, that involves the Hermes Society. It's getting to be a little bit more intense. Like, the first half of the book is very heavy on the language rhetoric, also in the sense because in the first half of the book, we see Robin go through all of his schooling at the Oxford School with Lovell and all these other things. And so, like, the first half of the book is dedicated to him building on that skill, building on those things, and learning about the Hermes Society. And now that we're at the halfway point, there's massive changes that are going on that are causing him to really look at whether or not he wants to play it on one side or the other. So, I don't know. I could talk at length about this book, about all these different things within it, but yeah, it's good. It's really, really good, but I do know that there's a lot of people who are finding it very hard to get into, and I don't blame them, because of the fact that, you know, like I said, it's very heavy on rhetoric that many people would not be really, I think, interested in, but it doesn't change the fact that I'm enjoying it, so it makes me very happy. But also, I am working through Darker Shade of Magic. I talked about this in my Finish Your DNF video just a minute ago, but basically where I'm at with it now is I'm really bored of it. I'm going to be basically getting to this spot right here is my reading goal for the day, and that's going to get me about 83% of the way through the book. And I don't think I'm going to continue with the series unless somehow the last 118 pages of this book change my mind. I think this is going to be a 2-star read, because I'm bored of it. I don't really care for the characters. I don't really feel like I'm at all engrossed in it. And the only reason it would get a 2-star is because I'm still going to finish it, because I'm interested enough to see how the ending is, but I highly doubt I'm going to want to pick up the second book, let alone finish the entire series. So at this point, though, I don't know whether or not that's still going to happen. Obviously, the Finish Your DNF video will show whether or not that is the case. My goal for today is to get to page 429 of Babel and get through a little bit more of this. Like, my reading goal is not to finish this today, but at least get to where this thing is. And I think my reading goal was for tomorrow to finish A Darker Shade of Magic, but we'll see. You know, by tomorrow I'll know whether or not I really want to continue with this, but as of now, not really sure I want to even finish the series, so. Hey guys, so it's just after 11 in the morning on Friday. It is thankfully now the weekend, and it is also today Robert's birthday. It is my husband's birthday, so he is a whole 24 years old today, which is very exciting. He's already up and around, and I've given him my presents. Tomorrow, though, we are actually having his birthday party, because tonight he is going out with his parents and maybe a couple of friends, depending on who can make it. They're going to go out to a casino for the evening, so I am going to have the house to myself this evening, which will be kind of nice. Now, I am putting aside Babel for the weekend, at least until Sunday, because I am nearly done with it. I'm like almost 75% of the way through it. On like page 429 out of like 540 something, so I'm really close to the end. And last night, during Brandie's sprints that I was on, oh my gosh, I got to a point in the book where like everything is going to crap. And the thing is that with R.F. Kuang, from what we've said with the Poppy War, she will make you get attached to certain characters and then, just like many other adult fantasy writers, kill them off. And I was holding out hope that maybe that wouldn't happen with this one, but it did. There was a really bad set of events that happened that a lot of people ended up dying, and it was heartbreaking. I was sobbing. I was sobbing from it all. So it was not very fun, but I am putting that aside for a couple of days, which is probably the best because of the fact that, like I said, I was sobbing. So it's probably a good time for me to put it down for just, you know, the next couple of days, because for the next 24 hours, starting at noon today, I will be working through The Way of Kings. Now, I don't really know much about this. I just know it's part of the Stormlight Archive and it's part of the Cosmere. And from what I understand, there's a lot of, like, battles, like a whole, I think something to do with, like, a war of some kind that's going on. But I have heard that this is one of Sanderson's most favorite series from the fans. Like, the fans, this is like one of their most favorite series of all time, other than obviously Mistborn, Era 1. But this is like the one where, like, a lot of people are like, this is his best work. This is like top tier Sanderson in terms of a series, not just like a standalone of any kind. I wanted to come on because first of all, like I said, I want to talk about Babel and the fact that I will be doing the Brandie Sanderson read-along. And because I'm so close to the end of Babel, I think it is appropriate that, since it was my last prompt I needed for Bookoplothon, we go ahead and roll for the Bookoplothon board. But I just remembered too, I wanted to talk about the fact that I did finish A Dark Shade of Magic here just a few minutes ago. But we're going to go ahead and do another roll for Bookoplothon just to see if maybe The Way of Kings can fit into it, or at the very least if any of the other books I have slated for this month, which there are, after The Way of Kings and finishing up Babel, there's I think 4 books that I had slated for sure for the end of the month. Let's just see if any of those fit. All right, so I've got my board here, and I got to set it back to where I started last time, which was at buildings, because I did make a full round of the board and then ended up here with Babel. And I've got my 2 6-sided die here, as well as my cards. So let's go ahead and see what we're gonna end up getting this time. We got a 1 and a 6, so 7. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and that is a book with a favorite trope. Okay, so this could really be a lot of different things, obviously. I have a lot of favorite tropes that I enjoy. I don't really know anything, though, within The Way of Kings that, like, 100% fits this, but I will say that I'm fairly certain that there's this idea of somebody basically at one point in the series or whatever, kind of being underestimated, and then that person exceeding what everybody thought that they could do, which I think may have to do with something with the main character. I don't know. I'm going to try to see if The Way of Kings will fit that, because I'm sure if I read it and it comes up, I can make it count, because I just don't know off the top of my head. So we're going to slate this one off for a possibility for The Way of Kings, because I think that it's possible. And honestly, Brandie Sanderson, I found that can really do no wrong with me, other than Mistborn Era 2, but we're not going to get into that yet. But I think with The Way of Kings, this one should have at least one trope that I really, really enjoy, because for most of what he's done so far, he has played on tropes I've really liked. And I wouldn't say he necessarily recycles the same tropes, but he does use the similar tropes from different series, you know, together. So I think that this should still work, which is very exciting. Talk to all of you guys on Saturday when we are done with the Brandie Sanderson readathon. Okay, so welcome to Saturday, everybody. It is currently just after 2 o'clock in the afternoon. I have a little less than 2 hours before one of our friends is going to be here to help me set up for Robert's birthday party. So I have still just enough time to finish up filming and stuff. I just pre-filmed a bunch of TikToks, I did thumbnail pictures, and I still have to record my podcast for this coming week, which I'm going to do here in just a minute, but I wanted to update you guys because the Brandie Sanderson 24-hour read-along did finish up earlier today at noon, and I managed to get through, I think, 181 pages of The Way of Kings before that had hit. I still am going to be working on it throughout the day today because I wanted to reach a certain goal by the end of the day today, regardless of if it went over the noon deadline. But currently where I am at is the end of chapter 13. I did actually end up getting the Audible audiobook for this because I realized that I was given a free trial again, so I was like, I can't function without this audiobook. I've been struggling getting through this book, and the audiobook has made it so much easier, so it was also going to be free, so why the heck not? But
According to that, with my Kindle, at the end of chapter 13, so we're going to round it up to chapter 14, which puts me at page 224. I've still got a little bit to go before I reach my goal for today, which is page 295, but I think I should be able to get at least close to that as I'm getting things finished up around the house. We did clean up the house after I got back with groceries, so that's all done, taken care of, and so once I finish recording my podcast, I'm basically just going to sit down and relax and read more of The Way of Kings before my friend gets here. I am also very excited because of the fact that this is going by really well. At first it was really hard because of the fact that like it's a new world within the Cosmere, and there's a lot of moving parts. There's a lot of things going on at once, but I'm enjoying it. Not nearly as much as I thought I was going to, I think, initially, but it ended up still being very fine. Like at this point, like I said, I'm at like over 200 pages in, so I'm like 20% of the way through the book, and this is like an 1,100 page book, so it's not going to take me like a ridiculous amount of time, but like most people, because I have like reading goals I reach every day. But after today, I'm going to put this down at least until Monday, because tomorrow I'm going to be finishing up, hopefully, Babel, because I still need to finish that. I put it down specifically so that I could do the 24-hour readathon without anything getting in the way. But I'm a little scared to go back to Babel, not gonna lie. The way that I ended off Babel on Thursday, I was not doing okay. But yeah, I feel like a chicken with my head cut off because I've been running around all day. I didn't get out of the house until almost 11 to go get my groceries and stuff. And I was gonna go also to pick up Monstrous Volume 7 because that came out Wednesday, and then pick it up at my local bookstore, but they didn't have any. So, which was weird because it said on the website that they did have at least 3 copies in, but by the time I got there, they were no longer available, or they just are not able to put them out on the floor yet. I don't know. So I couldn't get that, so I'm going to basically get the Kindle version of it because I just want to get the copy and be done with it. So I'm going to get that later today. Tomorrow I am going to be out with my mom and my sister because my mom wants to take me to go get a new interview outfit as like a congratulations thing, with the fact that like I'm getting interviews. I don't know why she wants to do that exactly, but you know, it is what it is. I'm not going to tell her no. And plus it's just a good excuse for us to go hang out because my mom and I are, like you guys might know, are very, very close. My sister and I are very, very close as well. So a lot of times when they get to come visit, and more so see me, going shopping is kind of something we do, whether it's window shopping or actually going shopping, whatever the case may be. But yeah, I also, though, today went to Hot Topic because my in-laws had given me a $25 gift card to Hot Topic for my birthday, and I got to use it. So I basically didn't find anything really great that I wanted. There was a lot of Nightmare Before Christmas stuff that I really wanted to get, but it was all like a lot more expensive than I thought it was going to be. So I ended up just getting a band t-shirt. I just got a Pierce the Veil one because I've been slowly rebuilding my band t-shirt and graphic tee collection, because many of you might not know, but back in high school I was a big like band t-shirts and skinny jeans kid, and I kind of at one point felt like I needed to grow up and not wear that stuff anymore. I got kind of like made fun of a lot in high school. And so then in college, I had basically decided that like I needed to grow up. I needed to, you know, stop living in this like teenage gray area of my life that I kind of felt like I was being stuck in. And that required me to then turn all my band t-shirts into gym shirts by cutting the sleeves off. And then they all just got basically destroyed in the process of doing that, because like they weren't really great quality to just force into gym shirts basically. And so since the last maybe 6 months or so, I finally decided to just stop giving a shit and just get as many graphic tees and band t-shirts as I'm able to when I can, because like those were like my thing. They were comfortable. I felt like I could be myself with those on, and I finally got to a place now in my life where I don't care so much about whether or not people make fun of me about wearing like an anime shirt or something. That's just a lot of stuff that's been going on recently, but I do, like I said, still have to get my podcast finished up, and I need to take a quick picture for a Instagram post that I need to put out this coming week. So anyway, that's gonna be it for me for right now. I will chat with you guys probably tomorrow to close out the vlog, because of the fact that I'm gonna be busy the rest of the night and not really able to chat much. So we will catch up tomorrow and close out the vlog. Hi guys, it's going on 6 p.m. on Sunday. I have done no editing today because I've been out all day with my mom and my sister. I'm very grateful right now for my family. My mom today bought me at least 3 outfits for interviews. And they were not cheap, mind you. I have not been very okay mentally for a long time. At least not 100%. I've struggled a lot in the last while. I don't even know exactly how long. It honestly feels like it's been a never-ending struggle with my mental health for years at this point. And it's just been hard. I have a lot of good days, but it feels like they're very short-lived. And then it's weeks of thinking I'm okay and then realizing I'm not. And especially with the stress that I kind of talked about earlier this week about trying to find a new job, my confidence has basically been really shot for a long time. And interviewing has not been something that I've had to do very often. And so with having 3 interviews in 2 weeks, it's been a lot. And I have one on Tuesday that I'm really excited for, but I'm really nervous for. But trying on clothes today for interview outfits was really weird. I have a hard time trying on clothes as it is. A lot of times I've had such bad body image issues for many years, and I am comfortable in my body right now. I feel more comfortable in my body now than I did a year ago. But trying on clothes was not something that I tended to do ever. Very rare I would do that. I know what I like with clothing, right? So there's no need for me to try it on. You know, I get the size I need, I'm good. Like, it's not very often I have to do anything like that. But today, I kind of did something that I was not expecting to do today, where I had the girls, I went to Maurice's basically, and I had the girls there pick out some outfits, which for one was very nerve-wracking because it kind of meant I didn't have a choice in the items being picked, but I ultimately did have a choice in what I wanted to go with, what I wanted to, you know, have my mother very, very kindly and very generously purchase. And it's really weird. It's still really weird for my mom to buy me things. As an adult, it's gotten a lot harder for me to be okay with my mom buying things for me, because I think I've just become so used to right now having to do that for myself. I mean, my parents have always been people who, like I said, I think I said this earlier this week, they've always been very generous people. They've always been gift givers. That's one of the ways that they show love, is by, you know, buying things for other people. I'm trying to hold in tears because I'm overwhelmed with love. Not that I didn't think that my mom didn't love me or that my sister didn't love me, but, like, you know, you just have, like, already, like, really poor, like, mental health, and somebody does something really nice for you, and it's like there's just this overwhelming amount of, like, kind of guilt that they, you know, spent so much money on you or whatever, or spent money on you at all. That's kind of how I'm feeling. I am very grateful of it. I would never not be grateful for my mom to do something like that for me, just because she cares and she wants to, you know, support, and she wants to make sure that I feel as confident as I possibly can going into these interviews, because I don't have a lot of confidence. But another aspect of it for today was the fact that trying on clothes today, there were some outfits that I had not felt as confident in since I got my wedding dress over 2 years ago. Almost, I think, 3 years ago at this point. And so, that was a big thing for me. I don't typically find myself very confident in a lot of clothing anymore, because most of the time I'm just wearing skinny jeans and a band t-shirt, and more often than not, because I work from home still, I wear pajamas all day. I haven't really had many outfits that I've felt confident in a while, especially when I'm trying them on in the store and having like other people see you. It was a very weird experience. And again, I don't know. I'm very flustered. I don't even feel like I can properly form a sentence, and I apologize because I don't know how to feel. I don't know how to feel. It's like a mix of happiness and a little bit of guilt and nerves, I think. I'm very overwhelmed, I guess, with emotion. And I love that my mom wanted to do something very nice for me. I got my gift-giving love language really from my mom, and I'm very grateful for that. It's still weird, you know? It's just kind of one of those things where, like, I'm uncomfortable, but I'm also okay with it, and I just don't know whether I should feel more okay with it or uncomfortable or what. It's really silly, I know. It might seem like that to a lot of people, but, I don't know. It's one of those things. Something I'm still trying to work on. And, I guess it's also part of it is I don't expect people to do things for me. For one, because I'm a huge control freak. I have to do everything, because it's not going to be done the way that I, need it to, for one. But also it's just really weird when people do things for me. And that's anything. That's gift giving, that's in any kind of act of service in any way. I don't expect it. And it just feels very, very strange. So it's something that, like, I'm not necessarily uncomfortable with, but it is something that I don't expect. And so when it does happen, I'm caught a little off guard sometimes. Because, like I said, I feel that I need to be in control of everything. And so when someone decides to do something for me, to take it off my plate, or because they think that, it would make me happy if, just to alleviate my mind a little bit, it catches me off guard. I don't, there's a lot of issues within that. I basically have realized that because I'm 25, next year I have to officially go off of my parents' insurance, especially if I don't find something by next summer. Because in the state of Michigan, at the very least, you can stay on your parents' insurance until you're at the age of 26, and that's regardless if you're married or not. So I've been on my parents' insurance for a while. It's the best insurance that, we could get. And it's always, been really good for me. And my company's insurance has never been really great. It's much worse than my parents' insurance currently, where, like, I'd have to pay more for deductibles and things like that. But no matter what, this October, when open enrollment happens, I either have to sign up with my current employer's health plan if I end up having to stay there because I can't find a job or whatever that is outside of what I currently do, or if I end up getting a new position, especially with one of the two places I'm going to interview with next week, I would have to immediately almost as soon as I start with them, pretty much get on the health plan so that I have health insurance for me and my husband, because I am going to make sure he's on my insurance because he's my husband. I want to make sure that he, has protection if he needs it. So that too, I can find a doctor that's closer to my home, because the doctor I currently see is 40 plus minutes away, but I'm also, like, when I go see a new doctor, I want to talk about getting on my medication again, and maybe even a different medication, because what I was on was not really helping with too many things. It's either I would probably need to go on a higher dose of that eventually, or maybe it would be I try something completely different. And hopefully, too, get back into therapy. I would like to be able to go back into doing therapy again, because that I feel like I was doing the best I possibly could with my mental health when I was in therapy and when I was on my medication. And I say that in the sense that I feel like I was not necessarily more stable, but I was better able to, I don't even know if that's keeping myself in check is the right way to say it, but essentially I feel like I felt better being in therapy. And especially when I got on my medication, it did help with some of the impulsive thoughts I had, but it only really helped with that. It didn't really help with anything else, so I wonder if maybe going back on the medication I had and upping the dosage would be helpful. I don't know. I stayed on the lowest dose for 9 months, and that was partially why I thought it was better for me to get off of it, because I think that my body had adjusted to it perfectly to where I didn't think I needed it anymore. Very stupid decision again. Please do not do what I've done. But that's one of the big reasons why I need to find a new job. I need something that's going to have better insurance. And I also need something I'm going to be happy with, because I'm not happy. I've been working, like, I've talked about all this earlier, you know, it's not something I need to go into again here, but in general, I've not been happy for a very long time, and I need to get better. I don't think I could tell you the last time I was fully happy. Because I think that even since I was in high school, I've spent a lot of days where I was just masking my anxiety to the point where it was passing as being happy. I don't think I've ever fully experienced pure joy. I found things that can make me happy for small periods of time, but as a baseline, I don't think I've ever experienced joy, just as a baseline. And I don't know if that's normal. I don't think it is. I'm kind of just become complacent, I guess, if anything. Today was a day where I feel like a lot of that stuff really has hit me hard. And it is very clear to me, and has been clear to me for several weeks now, that I have to get better. I have to. I'm not happy, and I want to be. And the only way that's going to happen is if I make myself get better. I think that the best way for me to do that is to finally get myself the mental help I really, really need, and stop acting as if everything is fine, because it's not. My mental health is piss poor at this point. So much to the point that I can't even fully thank my mom for doing something nice for me without feeling guilt. So much to the point where I can't believe my husband sometimes when he says, you know, that he loves me. Even though I'm married to him, and I've been married to him for nearly 2 years, and we've been together for almost 8 years of my life. I'm sick of suffering. I'm sick of suffering with myself. And it's time to change. And I mean, it's going to take time, no matter what. But I'm really hoping something, the universe, whatever you want to call it, I'm really hoping that
I get the opportunity to be able to make that change. And especially in a way that is much more beneficial financially, more so. Okay, I'm done. I'm done crying. I'm done, okay? I'm sorry. I'll make sure to place a trigger warning before all of that. But I did get to page something. I haven't got any further than what I did yesterday. So I haven't done any reading today. I was supposed to finish Babel today, but I still didn't even reach my reading goal from yesterday for The Way of Kings, which is fine. I'm just not going to pick it up until probably beginning of next week. But I needed to close this vlog. So I will be picking up Babel hopefully tonight as things are exporting and stuff. I'm very behind on a lot of stuff. I think that I'm only going to be able to maybe get my vlog done and maybe another video, which is fine. Thumbnails I could probably get done and the Instagram pictures that I need, but video-wise I think I'll only maybe get 2 videos done, and then I think tomorrow I'm going to have to get 1 video done and a podcast. And that's if I can get any done at all. We'll have to see. But anyway, so this week I feel like I didn't do too much in terms of reading. I mean, in the sense where like I only finished a couple things, but I'm glad that I was able to finish A Court of Silver Flames, get through a lot of Babel, and get started with The Way of Kings. Those were my main goals for this week, and I did that, so I'm very happy with that. I'm very content with that. And then next week, what's going to happen is obviously I'm going to try to finish Babel tonight, and then the majority of next week is going to be focused on The Way of Kings because I'd like to get that done by the end of this week. And then I don't know off the top of my head what else there might be. I'm going to check real quick. So then it looks like that by the end of next week, I should finish The Way of Kings by like Saturday next week, going with my reading schedule page goal. And then Saturday start The Sword of Kaigan, which is Brandie's book club pick for her membership group, and looks like read a lot of that on Sunday as well. So pretty much focusing on finishing The Way of Kings, I think, is the thing for next week, and then by the end of the week getting started with another book, which if I can get through The Way of Kings, like, that's going to be a huge thing, because that book is freaking huge. I will let you guys know how the interviews go. I have Tuesday and Wednesday are my interviews, so I'm hoping that by the end of next week, maybe I'll have a new job, I don't know. Keep your fingers crossed for me though, please, because I would really, really like to be able to have a new job sooner rather than later. But everything will work out how it's meant to. I'm trying to remind myself that it will all work out how it's meant to. It will all happen as it's supposed to. So I just really hope it ends up working out for the better. But anyway, thank you guys so much for joining me today. I'm very sorry for the crying and partially anger things I've been talking about the last week. There's been a lot of feelings coming up this past week that I feel like I needed to address for a long time, and I think is a good reminder for some of us who may be struggling with mental health that it's not just you that is dealing with these things. There are other people who also, feel things and are having a hard time some days with their mental health, and how just it's like a good reminder that like you're not alone sometimes. But obviously I will have placed trigger warnings for things where I need to, for those of you that don't need to hear these things, because of the fact that there are people who can be very triggered by some of the mental health talk that there is, because everybody has to look out for their own, and sometimes it's just not opportune to listen to somebody else talking about what their experience is like. If you guys did enjoy this video, please do give a big thumbs up. And if you haven't already and you'd like to be and would like to see more, hopefully positive content like this, less on the mental health stuff, go ahead and hit the button down below and subscribe to become an owlet in our flock. And I will see all of you guys in my next video. Bye, guys.